Yeah, your audio keeps cutting in and out. I don't know if it's because of Jessup's TV or what.
One player went off. It was Ryan Reeves.
Hold your thought.
Well,
Care of this.
I can't hear John at all. Now he's like a mime.
How about now?
Oh, he gone.
He's mad. Big mad.
He gone. Welcome back, everyone, to the Track Packers podcast for episode 9 of season 2. Thank you so much for joining us as we are still in a holding pattern, thanks to Mother Nature throwing yet another curveball at us this week. But we have the full lineup here ready to give you the lowdown and get the excitement going for the 2023 season with myself, Mason, along with Becca, John, and Jessup. So full crew on hand. We are presented by Hitch Harness. We want to thank Tyler Hall, along with Clear Arc Industries, for the support of the podcast in 2023. If you haven't heard of the Hitch Harness product, it's a really cool thing developed by Tyler, especially for the truck owners out there. And we know there's a lot of you out there in the racing community. Specializes in a couple of aspects or challenges that you may face as a truck owner. So the first aspect is safety. Nice storage in the back for your receiver hitches in the back of the truck bed. So that way it's not rolling around in the back of the truck, potentially damaging the truck bed or even flying out of the vehicle during an accident. The second aspect is efficiency. Since it's located right in the back of the truck, it's really easy to access for a quick project or a quick switch out of your hitches. If you go over to hitchharness.com, you can have multiple colors or multiple styles to choose from. And so, like I said, check out that website, find whatever fits your needs there. And also for your racers out there, if you want to have some shop upgrades, including some chassis dollies, they have that on the website as well. And so keep in tab with the website, check out their Facebook page. They do a lot of promotions throughout the year. And so thank you once again to Tyler and the support of the podcast for 2023. And we have an interesting lineup once again. We have the same lineup as we had for last episode, because from here on out, we're going to be having a running order after each episode. And so fans at home can kind of get to keep track of how we all are doing as far as cautions go. And so some episodes get a little bit caution filled, some don't. So it'll be interesting to see how we're all lined up. And so, Becca, starting on the poll once again for this week, how are you doing this week?
I'm good. A little frustrated that obviously this weather is not ideal, as some tracks in the region are gearing up to go racing, but I'm not so confident those tracks may start on time. So, what the hell, Jessup?
Becca, which track is going racing this weekend in our area?
I said the region.
In our region.
I meant that as a very general comment, because there's no tracks racing this weekend, but there's several trying to start next weekend, and we're not going to be podcasting next weekend. So
you don't know that.
Well, considering by the time this podcast comes out, it's going to be probably Tuesday or Wednesday next week from when we're recording this on Friday, April 21st. Exactly. And so I'm honestly going to let that caution slide.
Fine. You've got one. Put her to the back, Mason.
Regardless, the weather's just not ideal. It's the middle of April, and it still feels like a February, March day. So hopefully the weather will turn around, warm up, so that we can all go racing very soon.
Yeah, right there with you. It's been kind of one of those weeks where it's just been very frustrating watching the weather. But going to the outside poll for this episode, John, how are you doing?
I am actually doing quite well. And there's two reasons for that. And they're both non-racing related. The first one is that we are actually gearing up to go to the National Bowling Tournament here. We're going to be leaving next week for that. So that's a very, very exciting time frame. And I am also excited. Well, this one is kind of a little bit, I guess, racing related, is that there have been several car shows that have been going around here recently. So we have got some very nice paint schemes to talk about here later in the episode.
Very good, very good. Yes, that's been the one aspect that's kind of been carrying us into the racing season whenever it's going to start in the next couple weeks. And so, yeah, we'll get to talk a little bit more about paint schemes this episode. Mr. Jessup, how are you doing?
I'm good, Mason. It's always a good day to be surrounded by friends and talking about things that we enjoy talking about. So I'm good.
Yeah, and you're finishing up your master's. Have you officially finished, or do you still have a little bit left to do?
I've got one revision left to do, and then I have to present to all the smart people of my university and then convince them somehow that I shall be known as Master Pelkey.
Cool. Very cool.
I'll just call him Jessup.
Thanks, John. Hey, we'll be on the same level.
We will be on the same level.
It's about time that John had someone on the same level.
Time for me to get my doctorate.
If you get it, I'll get mine.
More power to you guys.
Oh God, let's hope not.
And then they'll have to call us doctor.
Doctors. Ooh, I'll have to be doctors.
Announcing
This will be
tonight,
great.
Announcing tonight, Dr. Miserable. Dr. Miserable.
Oh
We'll
my
be
goodness, I'm
miserable
already
square.
trying that.
We walked right into that. Why'd you
Yeah, we
ask me?
did.
Why'd you ask, Mason?
I don't know why I asked. Yeah. I'm doing well too. Gearing up for actually state bowling. So kind of similar to John. John was at state bowling last week. Been having an issue with my knee. So I've been kind of been laid up, not doing much this week. And so just been working on videos for the last week or so and hopefully gearing up for racing in the next week or two. But I want to give a shout out to a couple of the listeners that listen to our show. Dusty Lawson, one of the wingless sprint cars in our area, reached out and thanked us all for putting on a good podcast each and every single episode. And so thanks, Dusty, for checking in with us. Also, one of my friends from South Dakota, Casey Bossert, he reached out to me because he was listening to our last episode. We were kind of talking about our shirts, and he mentioned when we were talking about the 2012 Jamestown Stock Car Stampede on how if we ever have a watch party to watch that race again, that he would want to join and he would bring the snacks.
Ooh, snacks. Or
Let's make this
as
happen.
treats.
Ooh, that was a great
Treats.
stampede too, like we talked about. So yes.
Yeah. And I know we kind of talked about amongst the four of us kind of trying to figure out a time to get together, like during the off season, whether it's, during Duel in the Desert or Wild West, trying to figure out like a time for like everyone around the state, around the region to kind of get together. I think the difficult part is trying to figure out where to do it.
Somewhere central. Like Bismarck.
I agree. Bismarck seems like a great location for that.
We
Or
have a lot
Jamestown.
of listeners
Jamestown or
and
Bismarck would be
viewers,
fine.
so I don't know if Bismarck is the most ideal, but
What if we'd make it a traveling get together each for like 3 or 4 weekends straight? We go to a different location.
How about James? How about not about Jamestown? How about Mason's apartment?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, we could probably fit like maybe 15 people comfortably in here.
parking
Yeah.
would be miserable. But you know.
Yeah, that would not be ideal either.
We would have a show
So-
from a swing away or whatever it is, Top Shots.
So you're
Yeah.
saying that it's going to be miserable? It'll
Ooh.
fit me perfectly.
John, you could host.
I could host. It would be presented to you by Mr. Miserable.
Dr.
Only
Miserable.
only if you make your world famous lasagna.
You know, Jessup, if race fans or drivers or anything else really wanted to check that out, if we go that route, I bet you any money that it would be on Dakota Dirt. Again, race fans, if you want your one-stop shop for everything North Dakota racing news, results, and much more, check out Dakota Dirt.
Thank you, John. It is a good place to be. Hey, just a little off topic, Mason. How about a shout out to the Race Chaser blog coming back for, I believe it's his 7th year. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool to see that Tom Berg's going to be back and around the tracks. It sounds like he's going to be traveling a little bit more, kind of outside the region a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see where he ends up. Yeah, I would say, especially for the listeners out there, we appreciate the support, and be sure to like and follow the page if you haven't, or subscribe to us on the various streaming platforms. give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We would greatly appreciate it. It really helps the show, really helps us reach out to people that we probably haven't reached up to this point.
Jessup has to read all the 5-star review.
Yeah, you guys leave us a review, John and I, and then we'll read them on the podcast live.
This is
So-
very true. Because we
Yes.
are the podcast.
Hey Mason, what's the running order?
Currently, the running order is Becca, John,
No.
Jessup, and then myself.
Oh, but I thought Becca already had a caution.
That's
No,
a
I
caution on
overruled that one.
Mason. She got 2
Oh, that's right. He
cautions.
overruled that.
I overruled that
Crying
one.
out loud.
Yeah.
The track favorites or podcast favorites.
Well, of course,
Yep.
there's got to be a podcast darling on here.
I thought that was me.
Where?
Anyways,
I thought
Let's-
I was the cute one.
let's wave the
Oh,
green
we're
flag.
dropping the
and
green flag.
Let's wave the green
Ah,
flag and
dropped
get
the
in
green
right into the
flag.
show. And who or what are we repping? We'll start with the pole sitter, Miss Becca. Who or what are you repping?
Well, speaking of bowling, a bunch of us were going to go bowling last weekend. What do they call it here in Bismarck? I never remember because every place calls it something different. Thunder Alley Bowling.
Thunder Alley.
And my shirt would have been perfect for Thunder Alley Bowling, but the bowling alley was booked or reserved for prom, so we never did get to go bowling. But this would have been the shirt I would have wore under the black lights because definitely want to stand out. And yeah, so this is an old school Travis Ulmer t-shirt. And yeah, would have definitely looked really good on the bowling lanes under the black lights. Just would have been super bright and just popping. So yeah, I'm wearing Travis Ulmer this week.
Cool shirt. That's a Mason approved shirt right there. It stands out and it's nice and bright. And I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to lure him out of retirement.
You know,
is
I
true.
I hear he's having second thoughts about it from multiple sources. So maybe if he's watching or listening, maybe he's getting the urge to, go to the track. So
And get back in a car and buy another
Mhm.
car and get back on the
Mhm.
speedway. Travis, just some hints there for you.
There you go. Kind of just
Won't
trying
be
to
the
reel
same
him in a
without
little
him.
bit. Yeah. Yeah, we miss you at the track, Travis. I mean, I know he shows up, like hangs out in the pits and all that, but behind the wheel of a race car. Need you back behind the wheel of a race car.
agreed.
But yeah, cool shirt. We'll move on to John. Who or what are you repping?
Well, I'm going to continue my theme that I started last episode. So last episode, we were with the 33rd annual Stock Car Stampede. And this episode, we decided to go to the 34th annual Stock Car Stampede. This is the 2005 shirt. So 2004 for the Stock Car Stampede was a pretty big year, also within Jamestown. At that time, it was the record car count that had come through the back gate back in 2004. And 2004 was a very interesting year. And the reason why I say that is because that year in general, Thursday, it rained all day, downpoured all day Thursday. They actually weren't sure if they were even going to be able to race on Friday. Ended up racing Friday, had a really big car count on Friday, almost had 300 cars. Back then, I think they had 286 to be exact. And during that time frame, back in 2004 time frame, it was also the first year that the Wasota Midwest Modifieds joined the Stock Car Stampede lineup. So a little quiz for all of you guys here on the podcast. How many Midwest mods do you think they had that first year?
1 billion.
Can I
lot.
ask a precursor of a question?
Yes.
Were Midwest Mods a regular class at Jamestown in 2004?
No.
I'm going to say 34, John.
I was going to say around 30.
I feel
And-
like it's higher than what we all think.
Come on, Becca. You should get this right.
I should? Why?
You should. So because you have all
I'll-
your notebooks.
Well, I don't keep track of car counts like you.
Oh, see
But,
now we
I-
know that she's disappointing.
I do know the winner, but I'm gonna guess something high, like in the 50s. So let's just go.
It was
50.
actually 25
Oh.
first year around
Oh,
Okay.
for the Midwest mod. But Becca, like Becca said, that was the first year that Travis Sauer had won over in Jamestown and kind of went on a tear in the Midwest mod division for several years over in the Jamestown area. So, but yes, it was a very good year. That year was where Johnny C started 18th in the Wissota late model feature, ended up winning the Wissota late model feature. Scott Paulson, who was a multi-time Wissota Street Stock National Champion in the 33 machine, started back in the 17th position and ended up winning that year as well. So yeah, some movers and shakers that year at the Stock Car Stampede.
It's uncanny, that ability. I don't understand how he remembers all that stuff from 10, 15 years ago.
It was a lot of fun.
In 2004,
2004.
you were like,
It
14.
was 14.
Yeah.
Just think if you could use your brain for something useful.
So if only.
Then other than racing, just knowledge and such.
It's useful for this show, I can tell you that.
I mean, just think all those numbers. I mean, it's like I work with numbers.
It makes perfect sense to me. I mean, I remember random stuff too, but not on that level.
Yeah, no.
no.
Cool.
So I
Wow.
mean, Jerry Tice won the Bombers that year in the Breck Macaroni number 11 machine as well. So I mean, there's another random thought for you guys.
Goodness.
Can you just show a picture of Rain Man next to him or down in
He
his
each
little
won
cube?
the Super Stocks that year.
Oh my goodness. This is insane. Anyways,
How many
Jessup,
late
what are
models
you
did they
ripping?
have, John? How many late models?
How many late models? It was right around 50.
That's sad.
That's sad.
Yeah, because we don't get anywhere near 50 anymore.
Oh. I was gonna say that's a great car count.
But then,
It
like,
was
how
right around
many
50.
other events were taking place that weekend?
Okay,
Literally like maybe 3.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say, like, these days, I feel like there's like 8 other big racing events the same weekend as a Stampede. So
Oh, are we going down this road again? It's all good. Moving forward,
Anyways, yeah. Jessup, who or what are you repping?
I am repping Clint Anderson, the 9A former sprint car from Bellevue, South Dakota. It is a cool looking shirt, I think. Let's see if I can turn
It's
around.
very white.
Yeah, well, the back is cool, I think.
The back is very cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
oh
Ooh,
wow,
that's a
it's
nice
a really
paint
nice
scheme.
t-shirt.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
That's almost similar to the paint scheme on my sprint car that you all can't really see because it's washed out. But that's really similar to the paint scheme on the sprint car I have back there.
What's that back there? Is that a sprint car back there, Mason?
It's a sprint car, yeah. It's what
Why-
I have on the World
Why
Outlaws
do you
game.
have a sprint car? up?
Well, what do you mean? It looks like there's a street stock sitting over there on top,
Yeah.
on the top of your.
Oh, I'm referring to the TV.
Oh, I'm glad you specified.
Yeah. It's
You see
really
that?
hard to point backwards.
You're currently pointing at your steering wheel.
Close enough. Well, as far as who I'm repping a new Jamestown Speedway hat. Picked this up at the banquet a few weeks ago. And so kind of a nice patriotic looking hat. And so really cool to rep a track hat, I guess. And then for the long sleeve shirt, I have the 13B of Jess Brecky. Races mainly with Wissota Midwest Modified. He has kind of dabbled in the IMCA Modified. I think he might still have the IMCA Modified. I could be wrong on that, but picked this up at the Oval B Fall Classic, and yeah, really cool.
That is a
Cool-looking
amazing shirt if I ever saw one.
Yeah, they're really nice folks to talk to. He doesn't race a lot during the summer. He's from the Devil's Lake area, and he runs an aviation business, and so farming and kind of like spraying is kind of his forte, and so he gets to be pretty busy throughout the summer. So you kind of see him sprinkle races in throughout the summer, and so but it's cool to see when he shows up to the racetrack. He's always a really fast competitor and is usually up towards the front of the field. And so proud to rep Jess Brecky for the shirt this week. So we actually do have a little bit of a track packer report with the recent car show, or at the Dakota Speedway, or I should say at the Kirkwood Mall for Dakota Speedway. So you three were there. I wasn't there. I was just kind of looking at pictures. So what were you guys' takeaways from the car show?
There's a lot of legends.
There was a ton of legends. There was 20 legends there in the car show, which, in my personal opinion, was really kind of neat to see.
Yep.
That class is growing and it has become quite large. these days.
Yeah, last year there was, what was it, 18 or 19 legends at the mall
I think there
show?
was 18 last year.
So increasing even more. And like when I was looking through the pictures, it was kind of interesting to see, obviously a lot of familiar faces and a couple new drivers showing up too. And there's still a lot of veteran drivers that haven't revealed any schemes or we haven't seen anything of yet. And so there's still going to be quite a stout field of legends at the Dakota Speedway on a weekly basis.
Yeah, I would say we're gonna average right around that 35, 36 car count range over here at Mandan for sure, probably at the Dakota Speedway. And I wouldn't be surprised if Jamestown is right around that 24 to 26 area this year. Fargo around the same, probably 24 to 26 area as well. And I would say Dickinson will be probably right around that same area. So I think Legends they are making their comeback for sure in the state of North Dakota and surrounding areas here for that 2023 season. Some very nice hobby stock, some new drivers as well that are going to be in several classes that we have been seeing. Becca and myself have definitely been seeing based on drivers that are changing classes or switching into a new division or even just brand new drivers in general. And then also some new cars. So Jeremy Englehart, brand new hobby stock this year, which was kind of neat to see too, after last year's really, really hard wreck there at the end of the season in Mandan. But by far, I would say the best paint scheme, in my personal opinion, that was at that car show was for sure probably Sierra Davenport's. She won the Legends best appearing car, and what's very interesting about that car is that that's not a wrap, and that was, I think, what was really cool is that was not physically a wrap that was put on that machine. That was painted that way, so that was really neat to see too, and I think that even made that paint scheme even extra special.
Yeah, I agree. It looked really cool in the pictures. I'm sure up close it was even cooler. Yeah, so I was thinking too, like you mentioned Jeremy Englehart's hobby stock that Camaro body was, and it reminded me of the bombers that I used to watch up at the Nodak Speedway in the 90s and early 2000s. I was like, man, that's throwing it back to like my childhood. That was really cool to see too.
Yeah, that was before when IMC, I think hobby stock, I think those used to be called, were they stock bombers? I think back in the day, I think they were stock bombers.
I just remember them being called bombers.
Yep, but I know there was another division that came across as that too eventually down the road. So yeah, it was pretty interesting to see too, because I feel like a lot of some of the cars are going back to that design a little bit in part type. So yeah, so it's kind of neat because Will Halperg has one very similar to that as well. And then RJR, that was one thing too with about the Dakota Speedway Mall Show too, is they are kind of expanding their fleet of cars this year, but also it sounds like in future years. So that's kind of cool too with Bill and his a lot of his pit crew members. They are now actually building cars and racing themselves as well. So that's pretty neat to see.
Nice. That's awesome to hear. Becca, what did you take away?
Yeah, I had a great time at the mall show. I was there for a handful of the days, and it was great to see just the general public just stopping and checking out the cars. And overall, it's a great experience. Hopefully it got not only our racers and our racing community excited for racing, but hopefully the community as well. And hopefully, fingers crossed, this weather warms up and we can go racing. So I think the mall show it did its job. It got people excited for racing, and I just want to thank all the drivers that were there. But I'm disappointed in quite a few who I know have their cars finished that could have been there but weren't.
Mason, I think Becca just brought up a great point there too. The importance of the car shows. I mean, they are important for sponsors and for presenting your giving it out to the community to go up and see the cars up close and personal. And then we had a meet and greet with drivers on that Saturday. So even though they are one of those activities that definitely are maybe not a profit making thing for the racetrack or anything else, it's probably one of your best promotional items throughout the year, and also an area that track should really look into doing to get fan interaction, get maybe new people into the grandstands. And I loved what Becca said there. The general public walking around the mall and looking at the cars and seeing the cars as well, because you might have a little youngster that has never been to the racetrack that gets excited about cars, and maybe the race, the parents are gonna be like, hey, you know what, let's go check them out that weekend or anything else like that one too. So that's an area too that I think I don't want to say there's been several tracks that have gone away with that, but there are several maybe organizations or other things for racetracks that don't really see the importance of car shows anymore, and they're still important.
I would agree with that. Yeah. I always look forward to seeing the car shows, kind of getting, like we mentioned on the last episode, getting everyone excited to get to the racetrack within the next weeks or months, whatever it may be. And so, yeah, I agree with you there. Jessup, did you have any additional takeaways?
I thought the car show was fine. It was cool to see the RJR set up. You usually don't see that at a car show where there's like a show of strength in numbers for a team like that. So that was kind of cool. Martin Racing had quite a few cars, but that's normal for them. Another family that had quite a few cars were the Nelsons from New Salem. So that was cool. All three of them are racing legends this year. It was fun to see the different hobby stocks that are going to be there. I think this year, at least for Dakota Speedway, there'll be a really diverse field of cars. It's not just going to be the normal Monte Carlo, and Monte Carlo show. So it should be a pretty fun field, I think, this year. Outside of that, I don't know. It's cool catching up with everyone, seeing how their winters were. We came up with a fun idea to hopefully pursue with the legends, and that would be a family feud grudge match type of theme, where they run about, I don't know, probably like 4 to 5 laps, or family versus family, and then the family that wins moves on to the next week or the next round, and it's kind of like a bracket style playoff, and get to the end, and you have one ultimate family. I think we would have to split the Martins.
There's quite a few families in the legend division.
Yep. So overall, I had a good time, and it was fun catching up with your 4-time modified car show winner, the Gartners. That's right, folks. Back to back to back to back, 4-time champion.
Nice. Yeah,
you mentioned
he's gonna
have hero cards for that, Mason.
What's that?
He's getting hero cards for his mall show victories.
Good. I'll be sure to collect one.
I'm joking. He isn't. I would have to design that.
Well, get on it. Well, Becca's a graphic designer. She can design them.
Becca designed it.
On it.
There we go. Well, you mentioned the Nelsons too. I thought it was really cool to see Mike joining his kids there, and because he's been in a sprint car in previous years, and then a wingless sprint car. Actually, he's raced so many different car classes up to this point, and now jumping into legends with his kids, Maverick and Maxim. It's really cool to see. I think that's going to be a nice addition to the legend class. Also, I'm trying to think of. There was a couple legends from Jamestown also that showed up too. That was cool to see too.
Pearsons showed up through that one too, so that'll be kind of interesting to see on how they do this year, because they're brand new drivers in that division.
Yeah, that's awesome, because we haven't seen Kelly in quite some time behind the wheel, and so
Kelly or Casey, Kelly or Corey. Sorry about that. Those two were staples in the Minnesota street stocks back in the day in Jamestown.
Yeah, so that's nice to see a racing family kind of getting back into racing behind the wheel, especially. And so, future's looking bright for that class, especially. And two, kind of going a little bit out of order, but kind of shout out to another podcast, the Dirt Weekly. They had the Nodak Speedway board on one of their shows, and they kind of announced that they were going to have 2 or 3 legend shows, I believe, this year up at the Nodak Speedway. So that's cool to see legends returning to the Nodak Speedway as well.
And one of their nights is going to be like a regional qualifier, and the winner of that qualifier race will take home $700, aka their modified payout up in Nodak. They bumped all the purses up at the Nodak Speedway, and the mods are now going to be racing for $700 to win. But for the INEX Legend regional qualifier, they're going to use that mod payout for that regional qualifier. So I thought that was pretty cool. Big payout for the INEX Legends up at the Nodak Speedway.
Yeah, kind of a similar track between Nodak and Dakota Speedway with size and speed. So be cool to see the legends make their way back around the track. I want to say the last time was 2015 or 2016, somewhere around there, I think was the last time Legends were up there. And so it's been quite a few years since they've been there, but I'm sure they'll have a pretty good field of cars that'll show up for those nights, especially that regional qualifier. So that'd be cool to see. Nice. So cool takeaways from the Dakota Speedway Cars Show. Awesome to see all the new drivers and new paint schemes that showed up there. We're going to kind of continue part 2 of our designing our own paint schemes. Last episode, we showed my paint schemes that I designed along with Jessup's paint schemes that he designed. And so today we're going to look at Becca's and John's, what they came up with. John or Becca, which one of you want to go first on which scheme to reveal? Any preference?
I think Becca should go first because ladies first.
Okay, so we will go with Becca's. Let me get it queued up here for the audience who is watching. If for the listeners, if you want to check out our paint schemes, be sure to hop onto the podcast at this point. I'll put a timestamp there. And so this is the first paint scheme by Becca. Becca.
I don't think anyone's surprised by this at all. So my favorite colors are blue. Or my primary favorite color is blue. And then obviously my favorite car number is Jeff Gordon, or sorry, not Jeff Gordon, 24 for Jeff Gordon. Because yeah, I grew up a diehard NASCAR fan. Jeff Gordon was my favorite driver, therefore 24 was my favorite number. And it was ultimately NASCAR that led me to dirt track racing. So just combine a combination of my favorite color and my favorite car number. And surprisingly, this video game has the 24 similar font style. So that's pretty cool. I'm a graphic artist. That's what I do for like my real job. So it was really weird to design a paint scheme through a video game, which I grew up with video games when I was younger. This was definitely more advanced than those like EA Sports, like NASCAR 2004 versions of the paint schemes that you could do back then. And I just remember doing them back then and they looked hideous and no race cars looked like them. But this was very quite advanced, and I was pretty impressed with the different things that you could do. But yeah, so I like clean and simple things. So yeah, I felt this was the hit. This I guess if I drove a street stock, this is probably what my car would look like in real life. So, but thankfully for the competitors out there, I don't drive a street stock, so this can just sit in Jessup's little video games. Yeah.
It's been deleted already.
I also had an all blue version of it too, to be like super simple, clean and sharp. But I felt that the black just really added to it. So yeah, this was what?
I was going to ask if you
terrible.
I was going to ask if you copied the Pepsi paint schemes from Jeff Gordon in the early 2000s or the mid 2000s, because they look very similar.
They were
Except
some
for
of my
this one.
favorite
This one's
paint
ugly.
schemes.
Hold on.
This goes back to our
This is
discussion
even
before
better.
the show.
Hey, John. John,
Yeah?
I too am a graphic designer. I went all red, an all
Well,
white car,
Okay,
and
how
all
about this?
black car.
For my,
I mean,
for my-
this is the best that Becca can do for graphic designing. I'm a little concerned.
well,
John,
I only had
let the
10
car do the
options for like
talking
a.
when it comes to paint jobs.
Well, I only had like 10 options for like, okay, like this is your primary thing, and then you can do like little tweaks in here and there. But
Hold on.
What?
I'm through Mason. Go. I'm giving her the caution flag here.
What?
That's bull crap.
what?
There are plenty of yeah, granted, like
There's a ton of options.
there's a ton of options and like the different paint like schemes you can go with. There's like 12. Yeah, I get what
Okay.
you're trying to say.
Go
but
back to
I
my
am
car.
giving her a caution
Go
on this
back to my
because
car.
me too.
there's also very, very, very different tints of blue that you can go through too. Not 10. There's like maybe 20 to 30.
Yes, I know. Okay,
Mason,
so
go to the next
I got really
car. Go to the next
frustrated
car.
because
No, go to the next car. Go
Shut
to
up.
Go to
Becca's
the
second
plain
paint.
Jane.
Go to
Becca
the
Let's stay on
24.
this one for now.
No, go to the plain Jane. Come on,
I got
Mason.
really frustrated because I like I didn't mind the drop shadow, but like I didn't want it that thick on the 24, and I would have used like a different like a little highlight popper color, but it didn't give me that option because it was too
And here comes the caution, I think.
whatever. I don't give
John,
two shits about
were
your
we
caution.
able? John, were we able to change the drop shadow color? I
Yes,
think
we were.
Yes,
Because
you
I did
are.
it multiple
Oh
times.
no!
shadow.
No, it's too thick of a drop shadow.
But you said the
confident
color wasn't changeable.
Yeah, you said the color wasn't changeable.
John, much like your drop shadow color, the next flag color that came out for Becca.
Mason. Okay. I would have had like a white outline and then like a black like drop shadow, but the black drop shadow was like way, way, way too thick. And so then I just turned it to like all black outline. And yeah. Okay, so also let's be real. Like if I were an actual like street stock driver and it's my first year on the track, my paint scheme would probably be all blue because let's be real, if my driving reflects anything like my driving on video games, I was probably running into everyone and everything. And this is just easy for me to, you know, change out some stickers and decals and maybe put some new fenders on. Okay, so now let's say I got like 5 or 6 years under my belt and I become a way better driver, get some wins in victory lane. Then I'd probably go to something a little more fancy like that, because that's probably gonna be a half a wrap, not a full wrap.
Honestly, granted that your all blues scheme was very, very simple, I actually don't mind this one because
I don't mind this one either.
Nope.
Yeah,
Go back to the all blue real quick, Mason.
You know, speaking of Jeff Gordon, though, speaking of like the Jeff Gordon paint scheme, the best paint scheme that I really liked from Jeff, though, from the Pepsi scheme was the 2005 one at Talladega that he won with, that he dominated. That probably, I think, was his best one that he had, because it was a multiple different type of blue tint on the back of it, and it was way nicer. I mean, Becca could use that for her scheme, but I mean, why would she go into that much detail when she's a graphic designer? I mean,
it would have been a whole lot easier with my computer and my design programs than it would have been with this video game setup. Whatever.
I mean, yeah, there was so limited options there apparently.
Well, there were, and some of the options were stupid. Like, why would I want stars in my logo? Why? No, I don't want stars. What am I, 5?
All right, let's go to John's car because Becca's going to take another 30 minutes to explain herself on blue and what shade of blue. And she's going to come down here and choke me to it's the exact shade of blue.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting video to see. But yeah, thanks Becca for creating a couple of those schemes. I actually like that blue and black scheme. It's nice and simple. It kind of shows off the sponsors and doesn't overwhelm the entire car. So I think that's a cool scheme.
Thank you.
Yeah, so now we'll go to John's paint scheme. And so I will share the first one here. Mr. John Breckel, here to explain your scheme to the audience at home.
God, that's
ugly. Sure. So my paint scheme, which is 10 times better than Becca's, is a foreign outlay. And not only that, too, I'm an accountant, not a graphic designer, and this looks way better than the graphic designer's work. My number is a 2 because I am a diehard Rusty Wallace fan. I always was when I grew up. So I've always liked the number 2. Plus, there's been a lot of drivers that have been very successful with that 2 in the local dirt track ranks. You had Jesse Hare back in the day was number 2, and his was Wasota Street Stock. You had Brock Grunwald, who has been number 2 in the Wasota Midwest Mods and Wasota Modified ranks. So there's been a lot of really good. Dave Moss is number 2. I mean, there's a lot of really good number 2 numbers out there for drivers. So I've always been kind of a number 2 driver part and number for that. So the B is for my last name. So because there's so many 2s out there, I wanted to put down another outlay on there as well. I like KCU status. Casey uses the U there for his name as well, as he's got another one of a great driver in a number 2. Paint scheme. So this paint scheme, you guys are going to kind of laugh at me a little bit. It's kind of a throwback paint scheme that I've developed as part of one of Daryl Bauer's cars. My dad pitted for Daryl for years. And I went through and I always kind of liked the way that Daryl had his scheme, but there was one year that he had white in there. He always had white in his paint scheme. And he had black and kind of like an offset of black around the orange. And I was like,
gray.
You know what? If it was a little bit of gray in there too, but if he had like it flipped a little bit, I was like, oh, that would look so much better to get rid of all that white that he had on the car. With kind of either the orange or with the black as an outlay. So I was like, okay, let's see if I can kind of create that here with a game. And I was able to find, one of those thousands of schemes that they have out there, not just 10 like I had mentioned, to go through and
10 to 12
do
general paint schemes.
and do the actual design. Becca, your time is done. You can quit talking now. And also make sure that the sponsors line up in there also with the car and how they look. So yeah, so I went with this scheme. I also went with the black wheel covers because I thought that would actually make it look quite nice as well. And yeah, so this is the first one I had with the orange.
Yeah, I like that orange one. I like the swoop and the scheme. And yeah, it kind of reminded me a little bit of a couple of the Dara Bauer schemes that you mentioned. I thought that was pretty cool too. What about this
So
scheme?
now, as most people know, green is my favorite color. I've always been a green person for a while, and I've always really liked the way that the green tint shows up. So this is probably my favorite scheme with the green and black, and kind of a little bit of the white in there too. I think it just pops a little bit on the car, and then I had to do kind of the chrome wheels. I thought those would look really nice with everything that came across. So this is kind of my second scheme that I came out there with. I'm definitely a green person, so I made sure that the number outline fit in there quite nice with how that black touches right off of the green on there. It doesn't overpower it, since there is ways to correct that on this game as well. And would go through and make sure that it looks really nice and it matches the paint scheme of the car as a whole. And only that too, but if you look, most of those sponsor decals, they fit the car perfectly, with them being also green and also black and also white. If only some of our graphic designers could get this handy with their tool when they created their own plain Jane all blue car, it would be so much better
You give
for
me
fans in
Photoshop
general
and I
and
could
everything else.
make my yeah. Give me
You know-
Photoshop and InDesign and I would have this done. Like
All
Boom.
I'm gonna say is I think we all had some nice looking cars, but I think we need our listeners to take a vote or take a poll on who has the best looking cars between the four of us.
That'd be a good one. Our primary cars for sure, because
I think we put all 8 up. All,
I
all
don't
of
know.
our cars.
Becca's plain Jane one was going to get no votes, so
I-
that's why
I
I'm thinking-
guarantee you, Becca's plain Jane ends up winning because everyone will be sitting there feeling bad for Becca.
that is true. I mean, it'd be a pity party for Becca. So
your green one is definitely more
Yeah.
superior than your orange and black and gray one.
so they're both nice. They both turned out
Eh,
pretty good.
The green one's better.
I kind of went crazy a little bit with the game because, as you guys know, and a lot of probably our listeners know too, and our fans out there, that I'm huge into bowling. I am a hoarder when it comes to bowling jerseys and also different designs when it comes to bowling stuff. So I do a lot of my own designs and take pre-designed colors and kind of do my own color combinations. So I went a little crazy with this. Jessup actually gave it to me down. He gave me the remote downstairs when we were at his house to do some of the designing on this too, because I hadn't downloaded the game or got the game here at my house yet. And it was so funny because let's just say that I kind of got wrapped up with that, and I spent I think a couple hours, if not more, just designing different paint schemes. So I came up with like 10 different paint schemes throughout the night.
I think
It
he left
was
around
fun.
3 a.m.
I left
It
at
was-
3 a.m. that morning.
Yeah.
It was fun. We ran out of races to watch, and even the ones over in Australia were
We did.
wrapping up when John was leaving.
This is
Yeah.
true.
It's easy to get into a rabbit hole, especially designing paint schemes too. I was going to ask, since you kind of matched your sponsors with the paint scheme, are you just as good of a marketing person to find sponsors that fit your color scheme like Jessup is?
So I just have a personality for that, to go out there and talk to people. And, a lot of people, like Becca had mentioned, they just don't know me at the racetrack, but that is just completely false, because I feel like this past year in general, and maybe even the year before, I think people know me better than they know Becca, which is kind of, a little bit interesting in regards. So, or even like
News to me.
drivers, when they come through the pit check, and Becca looks at them and like, "In what class do you run?" And I look at Becca, I'm like, that's this driver in a hobby stock, a
In
legend
Becca's
or a mod.
defense, she's not
And-
a Rain Man like you.
So this is true, but I mean,
I've also been
she
pushed
just
out of the
doesn't know
pit
things.
shack to go do driver interviews for DSTVs, so I don't get to sit and get to know my drivers like I used to.
This is also true too.
So,
That's just one of the 15 duties that Becca does at the racetrack.
which will be decreasing this year, maybe. We'll find out. We'll see if we even race. We'll see.
To be determined, right?
Yes.
I will
TBD.
say it is funny that John, out of the four of us, at one point not too long ago, was the least known out of all of us.
We had to
And
drag him into the pits.
it
Remember
was
that?
funny. People were asking, "Who is that guy?" And I would be like, that's our track announcer."
No, I'm just miserable.
Well, there's that moment too. But yeah, we could share stories of being not known by our own track members.
Yeah, it's funny and sad at the same time, but yeah, yeah, I'll probably put together like a little montage of all our paint schemes and see what fans think about them and see which one's the most popular one right now. And so be interesting to see the results on that for sure. Just a quick little update on some of the locals that have kind of traveled down to various races. There hasn't been a lot of traveling from our neck of the woods so far this year. Well, actually, a lot of events have been canceled or rained out, and so unfortunately, not as much traveling outside of Arizona and kind of down in Vado. And so, but last week there is a big race over in Marshalltown, 5,000 win stock cars. We did have one driver go down there, Cole Hanshoe, in the IMCA stock cars, participated down there. It was kind of a 2-heat race format, and then they ran preliminary features to try to qualify for the A main on the last day on that Friday show, I believe it was. And so Cole unfortunately didn't make the main feature, but his car looks really good. I mean, it's a sharp looking car, and he looked really competitive in the races that I saw him run. And so shout out to Cole for making the trip down there. And also shout out to Logan Schmitz, one of our IMCA modified drivers out of Washburn. He made the trip down there. And also Nathan Speeton in the sport mod. Nathan got a couple of top 10s while he was down there in Marshalltown. So whatever our drivers travel, they tend to do pretty well and are pretty competitive. So it's cool to see that where they go across the nation, across the country. And then the other shout out I wanted to do for a local driver was to Tim Estenson, 410 sprint car driver from Fargo. He went to the IRA sprint show at Beaver Dam last weekend and got a runner-up finish. And so that was really cool to see. And I think he went plus 11 in that show. And so very good showing for Tim. I know last year was a little bit of a struggle for him with the mechanical troubles and other things. And so this year is starting off really well. I think he's going to be traveling down to Knoxville pretty frequently, probably Jackson and Houston, I assume. I haven't really checked his schedule, but
He's
really
got a
cool to
pretty
see.
outlaw schedule this year.
Yeah.
And he also he drove his way into the high limit race.
Yeah. He made the show at the high limit race. That was at Lakeside, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yep. And I think he made a World of Outlaw feature just
At
recently
I-55.
too. Yep. So he's
Did.
been on a nice little tear of late. And then to get a second's pretty good, because the IRA is no slouch either.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, it's really cool to see a local driver doing really well on more of a national scale too. So it'll be fun to follow him throughout the summer and see how he continues to do. So we touched a little bit on some of the rumors and developments from other tracks. Again, thanks to the Dirt Weekly, kind of sharing some insight into Nodak Speedway and also McLean County Speedway doing some track improvements and kind of laying out their schedule for the racing season. And so we mentioned the Legends make an appearance at Nodak a few times this year. They bumped up their purses in all of their classes, doing some reshaping as well. And so some really cool developments taking place at Nodak. They actually have their car show taking place this weekend. So once this gets posted, it'll be like in the previous weekend, but go to see some of the cars that'll be showing up to the car show there over this weekend. Looking forward to seeing some new faces and some of the new schemes that'll be there as well. And then I know Becca and I watched it for sure, but we want to touch on a couple of the improvements that McLean County Speedway mentioned.
Yeah, they are currently getting new lights up there. So that'll be much needed up at the McLean County Speedway. Not that their lighting system was bad in the past, but it's definitely going to be much brighter up there with those new LED lights. I also think they're getting a new scoreboard, which might not be ready for their very first race of the season. I think there's some shipping delays or something along those lines where it's just not going to be there in time or installed in time. But that'll be up and throughout the rest of the year though. So new scoreboard for them, new lights for them. What else am I missing? Shoot. But yeah, they also had some big news and I think the lights and the scoreboard were their two big takeaways that they have planned this year. Other than they do have some fairly big shows. They have a late model doubleheader. I believe that is in June, and then obviously
June.
they obviously are super excited for their Cole County Classic that first week in August. And so definitely some big races for them coming up this year, big payouts for some of those races, and then just some big facility updates. So
Yeah, it's really cool to see a small town track getting some big time improvements. Scoreboard, I personally love the scoreboard because it's always nice to kind of keep track, especially as a cameraman trying to figure out like, okay, when should I try to make my way back up towards the front? Where's the white flag coming? Because I'm half the time just watching the flag like, is the white flag going to come out this time? Not yet. So yeah, scoreboard would be really helpful, especially from my vantage point.
agreed. No, I'm excited for both Nodak and Underwood this year. They both are going under some fairly big improvements this year, and I'm super excited to see how those changes and those improvements carry out. And I'm super excited to follow their seasons this year and see how those changes make their racing program bigger and better.
Yeah. And it seems like the other class that's really getting some momentum heading into 2023 is the Race Saver Sprints. Jessup, did you see the news coming out about the Race Saver Sprints over in the Red River Valley?
Are they racing?
Yeah, it's a great
They
question.
released their Race Saver, what do you call it, challenge series or
sprint
Schedule
Sprint
sprint series.
series,
Oh,
yeah.
well, look, they've got races. Yes.
Yes,
Everyone
they
else
have
over
races.
there, not so much. But no, I thought that was a really cool thing that Shots family did for them. I believe it was $150 to each team that shows up. So that's really cool. You don't see a lot of sponsorship opportunities like that. And I think it's really going to help the growth of the 305s and hopefully maybe the 410s in our area as well. I think it's going to be pretty beneficial here for the next couple of years if that keeps going on.
Yeah, because that's kind of the hope to kind of, create a good pool of 305 sprint car drivers to eventually lead into 410 sprint cars. I know Brad Sang on the Grand Forks Best Source podcast shared that sentiment as well. As like the hope is to kind of get some of those drivers to kind of venture into like the bigger, faster 410 sprint cars eventually. And so 305s are fast, don't get me wrong, but yeah, trying to get them into the 410 and kind of getting in the top echelon of sprint car racing will be really cool to see. But yeah, so some cool rumors around the state, and we'll kind of see what all transpires over the next couple weeks as we get closer to the racing season and once the weather dries out and actually is conducive for racing. So we'll
that'll be in August, late August.
At this rate, wouldn't completely rule it out.
Last year, we took bets on who might be the first track to race in our region. Do we want to take bets on who the first track will be able to race?
No, because
No?
I already know who's going to get it.
Who?
It's going to be us at
Dakota Speedway? Well, the forecast for their first race looks like it's 45, windy and rainy. So I think that Mandan Meltdown might be pushed back a week.
Even at that, we're still going to be the first track.
Probably gonna be still first for that next
Probably,
weekend, though.
yeah. Probably the first week of May, I think is probably more realistic for Dakota Speedway, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yep, a lot can happen in just a few short days, so we'll see how it transpires. But yeah, I'm not taking bets because I don't know, no idea how it's going to play out. Latest and greatest paint schemes. What are a couple of the latest and greatest paint schemes you all have seen? We'll start with Jessup. Give us a couple.
John took one of mine with Sierra Davenport's. I thought hers looked really sharp. But if I have to go off another one in that class, I would say Ken Sandberg, NX legend rookie this year, jumping up from a very successful career in the IMCA Sport Compacts. His cars have always looked pretty sharp, and this year is no different. It's very clean. It's very crisp looking. And I hope they have a good season. So that's the first one I'm going to say that I think looks really cool. Another one that I thought that was cool was the Casey Martin's GTO. I think it's more so, I mean, the paint job's really good. It's just a clean orange and black GTO. and then he's got like the initial grill up front, so it looks really sharp and it looks really different than a lot of the other hobby stocks. So I'm curious how long that will stay nice and clean and not tarnished. And then looking elsewhere, I guess one that really kind of looks different. I like it is Sammy Mars's late model. I think it's kind of like the reverse of what his usual the family paint job is. It looks cool. I don't know how I like the blue, but I kind of wish there was a little brighter blue to match what his numbers were, but would flip it so it'd be like that shiny blue and then just like the flat white. I think that probably would have been cool. But I like his late model this year as well.
Yeah, some solid schemes there for sure. Let's go with Becca next. A couple schemes that stick out to you.
So I got a sneak peek of an Inex Legend through Snapchat. Brandon Anderson, for the last 2 years or so, he's had a black and gold paint scheme. He is returning back to his traditional black and red for his 2023 Inex Legend. He had a black and red paint scheme when he raced in the Hobby Stocks and in the Sport Compacts, but so it's not surprising to me to see him go back to black and red. But this particular paint scheme for his 38 Legend, it really just fits so well with the look of the Inex Legend. So for the most part, the top part of the Legend is with red, and then the bottom half is black. But then they got some, like, as Jessup calls them, tribal tattoos scattered throughout the middle of the paint scheme, and it really just looks really good. And so really nice paint scheme for Brendan Anderson. And then I also really liked the 700 of Gage Madler in the Inex Legends. His is for the most part all black, but I really like how his sponsors and his car numbers are in pink and purple. Very Mason-esque paint scheme, if you ask me. But it really just pops. So I thought that I really liked that. And then I also really liked Isaac Sandrels, who debuted his paint scheme at the Nodak, not mall show, but a car show. For the most part, it looks like it's a matte black paint scheme, but then like his secondary color, or second and third colors are chromy purple and gold, and it just looks really cool. So
Is that a technical term?
Chromy? Yeah.
Chromy purple.
Well,
I like it.
It's shiny. It's what it is. And I think it's chrome vinyl, but it just looks really cool. It's different. It's pretty different from the last year or so.
Yeah. Another good set of 3 paint schemes. Yeah, Isaac just debuted that scheme this weekend, and so yeah, it looks pretty cool. Excited to see it up close, hopefully. John, a couple schemes that stick out to you.
Yeah, so one of the best ones that I think I've seen so far from a modified perspective, Jody Belfi's 11 mod, the red on that. I love the way that paint scheme looks. I think it is super sharp. It gives a little bit of a different dimension than what we're used to seeing from Jody from like a paint scheme perspective. So I really, 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 really liked his. I thought that one turned out really nice for him, and I just like the way that the color combination looks. I think it's super, super, super sharp within that manner. So one of them too that I liked, which was kind of a little bit different this year, but I still kind of thought it was kind of neat, and it's a late model driver, is Kyle Puterlins. The yellow, red, or orange, I should say, and then also the blue on the 23 was very interesting and very nice as well. It's kind of just a little bit different of a look and kind of unique, which I think makes it kind of stand out a little bit more from the racetrack perspective. And that one I think will be something that we'll definitely see here on the track this year. And then the final one that I thought was kind of cool, and it's a sport mod, and it was Sean Green. So I really, really thought Sean Green's paint scheme was kind of nice on his 7S sport mod. I thought that was something that was a little bit different for him than what he's had the last couple of years, and it just kind of pops. I think when you see it on the racetrack.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, course, has a lot of pink in it, so of course I like that too. And so yeah, I liked all those schemes too as well. I'll just add a couple more. The first one that stuck out to me, and he's had sharp cards for several years now, is Kyler Satrin's IMSA Hobby Stock out of Mine on Demand. That thing looks really cool with the blue and the white and also the gold within the numbers. And so, man, really excited to see that on the track. I'm excited to see it on the track, but I don't want it to get dirty because it's such a nice looking car. And he puts a lot of work into those cars. He does a lot of the car work himself. He's working on his IMCA stock car that I think he'll be racing a handful of times throughout the summer. And I think his dad might be racing a little bit of it too. So I could be wrong on that, but yeah, Kyler just always put together some really cool cars and has some really cool schemes. And so definitely like that one. That's one of my favorites. And honestly, I like Jeff Ekdahl's street stock. I know it's a little bit different with like the all gray and then the blue numbers. And so, but I think it's so different and kind of like a little darker, ominous car that I personally like versus like a lot of the bright colors that typically I gravitate towards. I like that car, and I think it's going to look really sharp and really fast going around the track. And so those are the two that stick out to me for the latest and greatest paint schemes. So.
You know, I got two more I can add. I don't
Go
know
ahead.
if we added one of them. Dylan Schreider.
Oh, Chrome Shorter. Yep.
Yeah. If you look at his paint job or wrap job this year, it honestly looks like a video game wrap.
Yeah.
And I like the color scheme to it. Just the nice, clean blue, red, and white, and it's not too far off from anything. It just has a cool old time video game kind of look to it, but it also looks really like modern at the same time as well. So that's one of them. And Mason, I can't believe you didn't mention I think it's Max Beater's hobby stock this year.
Oh yeah, that looks pretty cool too.
It's clean. It's pink, black, white, and what type of green would you call that? Kelly green? Or is that or a shamrock green?
Yeah, I probably Shamrock Green is probably fits that.
But I like that. It's simplistic, but everything goes together well, and it's not over the top, which I think is just something I'm learning about my taste of design. I don't want it over the top, so I like those two.
Yeah, well, for this week, I decided to not pick non-pink cars for 1 week, and so
Was that hard for you?
not really. There's plenty to choose from because there's some really good paint schemes out there too, and still a lot more to be released. And so, be excited to see them. More than likely, going to be the first time seeing them at the track itself. And so, yeah. So those are our latest and greatest paint schemes on episode 9. As we wave the white flag for the episode, does anyone have any maybe wins that they've seen over the last week or two, or any other rumors that have kind of shown up over the last week or so?
I think I'm just super impressed with Tim Essenson and how he
Yeah.
started off his racing season off so far.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's really good to see him have some success on the national level.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I know it's more of on a national scale, but I think Tony Stewart deserves some kudos for getting his first NHRA win. I believe how many different cars
Four-wide.
in because I was in Vegas.
Four-wide nationals, right?
Four-wide nationals.
Yeah.
Yep.
I want to say it was either at least 4 or like 6 different cars over in Las Vegas or something like that.
What do you mean?
Well, because he mentioned that he's won in a couple different NASCAR series. He's won in sprint cars, obviously, NHRA in Vegas. I thought there was something else.
Indy?
Well,
I don't think
Well, it would either be, let's see, a late model, a sprint car, a 360 sprint car, a Indy car, any of the, maybe ARCA. Did he do IROC, John? Was IROC still going when he
he-
did?
Yeah, he did
yeah,
IROC.
he did IROC.
Yeah,
What else?
I
I
can't
wonder
remember
which ones
exactly.
they are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wonder if I gotta check on that, but I know he's won in so many different cars over in Las Vegas, and so that was really cool to see. And then Kyle Larson, I guess, decides to one up him a few days later at Eldora and wins in a modified in his very first time out. I think that was what 7 different cars that he's won in Eldora.
But I would say it this way. I think it's more of an impressive feat for Tony to have done it. Simply, if you look at the era of racing that he had to go through, where it was basically witchcraft for a NASCAR driver to go and race a dirt track race.
Yeah,
So-
that's a good point.
I mean, yeah, he has a bunch of freedom now to race and run whatever team he wants, but there was at least a 10-15 year period where he basically had to be stuck to one,
Discipline of
skill
racing.
set. Yeah, one
Yeah.
discipline. So I think that's pretty cool that he did it. I'm also a Tony Stewart fan, so I might be biased.
Yeah, because nowadays you got guys like, well, obviously Kyle Larson, Alex Bowman races sprint cars.
Well, everybody
frequently.
does now. Ross Chastain's going to be running a Lucas late model, and I mean,
Chase Elliott, Christopher Bell. Actually, Christopher
Ricky
Bell was told not
Stenhouse.
to, but
Ricky Stenhouse Jr. raced
Mhm.
a 360 tonight. I mean,
Yeah, so it's interesting how it's changed in the last 10 to 15 years, especially on drivers racing in different disciplines.
it was almost like taboo to like get behind like for a Cup Series driver or any NASCAR driver to get behind a dirt car. And
which is
now
really
it's
strange to
relaxed.
me because it almost feels like it was more accepted for a driver to race a IndyCar race and then do a NASCAR race than it was for them to do a dirt track race the night before and then come and do a NASCAR race.
It's a good point, because how many people did the Indy 500 and then the Coke 600?
Well, there's Tony, didn't Kyle
Robbie
and Kurt?
Gordon, Kurt Busch.
Kyle Busch. No, Kyle hasn't done that yet.
Not
Kyle
yet.
hasn't, but he
John Andretti,
expressed-
did he do it?
Yes, he has.
Mhm.
And then Tony Stewart.
Yeah.
Juan Pablo.
Oh well, yep. But did they do in the same day, John?
Juan did not. Juan
I-
just I know after he left NASCAR, he went in the Indy for a while.
But those
What?
are the but yeah, like John Andretti, Robbie Gordon, Tony Stewart, Kurt Busch are drivers who actually went and raced the Indy 500 and then flew to NASCAR to race the 600.
Gosh, I can't imagine going through a day like that. I've ran like 6 marathons, and I can't even imagine doing 2 races like that in the same day. That's got to be grueling, and trying to prep for that, that's got to be insane.
Hydrate. That's what they say, is gotta keep hydrated.
Just a couple of the rumors that I've heard. So Alyssa White's coming back from, I think it was Basic Train that she was in last year. So she'll be back behind the wheel of an IMCA hobby stock this year. And her mom mentioned on one of my posts that she's going to be racing a Wissota Street Stock a few times throughout the year. And so it'll be interesting to see where she pops up racing that Wissota Street Stock. So that's cool to see and hear. And the other rumor I saw, or just kind of like the picture I saw popped up today, was Aiden Wagner has a wingless sprint. It's going to get wrapped at the Nordic Speedway car show this weekend. And so be nice to see a new face behind the wheel of a wingless sprint car. And he's had plenty of success in the sport compacts. I don't know if he still has a sport compact anymore.
He sold it.
Sold it? Okay. So we'll probably be focusing on the wingless sprint. And so they have a lot of races on their schedule, Western Renegade wingless sprints. And so be fun to see him follow that, if not just a few races. And so just a couple of the rumors I've heard heading into the season. People are still trying to keep their stuff under wraps until the race season, I guess, is imminent. But weather is just saying no, I guess, right now. Find anything else, Jessup?
Well, there's really no just straight list of this. So
Yes, of doing research, this doesn't surprise me that there's nothing being found.
that's a mean thing to say. Kyle Busch hit the pace car.
Tony Stewart was notorious for it. Did we wave the white flag? I can't
We did.
Yes,
remember.
we did.
Okay.
Yep, we displayed the white flag. So
Wait, did Jeff Gordon hit the pace car? Did Jeff
No, I don't think so
Gordon.
very much.
hit the pace car? Jeff Gordon
Oh,
hits
Jeff
pace
Gordon just
car.
hit everything else. Remember, Mason, when we were watching that one year?
oh yes, he definitely had
Oh,
had
yes.
his fair share of things.
Hitting things.
On that
Oh,
note,
oh, she's
Probably
mad now.
because that car was so clean.
Oh, she's throwing
Oh!
the. I guess Becca's going to be throwing the checkered flag before Jessup finds any dirt on Jeff Gordon. So we will
Jeff-
close the Track Packers podcast for episode 9 of season 2. Be sure to like, share, and comment on the Facebook or YouTube video. If you're a podcast listener, please subscribe on Google, Spotify, and Apple, and also give us a 5-star review. Thank you to Tyler Hall and Hitch Harness for the support of the podcast. And hopefully soon we will see you all out there packing the track.